Hey, thanks very much for coming. I walked in this morning and saw the sofas, and I wasn't sure really what kind of show you was expecting. So I was a bit scared at one point, but I'm sure I'll be okay. So yeah, thank you for having me. I really want to talk about Unity and VR, AR, MR, and I guess now we're going to coin it as XR, mixed reality. And what we have done at Unity in the past, and what we're doing now, and what we're looking to do in the future as we look to help developers in many, many ways, and in non-game contexts as well. So I'm Josh. I'm a technical evangelist for Unity, and that sounds mega preachy, and that's exactly what it involves. So I cover EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, in terms of going out and meeting developers, telling them the good word of Unity, showing them how the tool works, delivering training, visiting big studios, small studios, indies, education, everyone. So yeah, I've been visiting a few game studios in Helsinki this week, and I'm glad to be here today to talk to you about what we do. I'm from the north of England, so my colleagues like to call me Jon Snow and tell me to go back to my wildling friends and laugh at me the way that I say certain words. So yeah. And also my name's Josh, and people get confused and then start calling me John. But it's Josh. But it's 2017, and it's the year of VR again, like it has been for the past 3 or 4 years, right? But I genuinely think last year, 2016, when we look back in a few years, will be classed as the year of VR. That's when 2 of the major high-end VR headsets were released, the Oculus and the Vive. The Vive is actually a year old today, commercially. And that's when a lot of people kind of got it into their lives, and it wasn't just people in the development scene that was aware of VR. It was a lot more extra people. And with Google Cardboard and Gear VR, that's when it started to get a lot more numbers commercially, rather than just developers and people very deep in tech. So yeah, I genuinely think it's 2016. Marketing people like to put it on whatever year it is now. But it's absolutely beautiful, right? It brings a lot of joy to people. And if you've not tried it, I strongly urge you to, because it's pretty awesome, even mobile phone-based VR. But for us as VR evangelists and people in the tech industry, it's important for us to show it to as many people as possible. Like, this old lady here would not be trying it if it wasn't for her grandson who brought it to her. And if you've seen the video, he brings it to her. It's the DK1. He shows her how to do it, and she's absolutely thrilled to see this world, this virtual world that she can be put in and experience and move around. So yeah, it's my job, and I give it to everybody else, that job to show it to as many people as possible. It's only going to become huge and mainstream when you can go into supermarkets, and you can go into Game, and you can go into John Lewis and see a virtual reality headset and try it yourself. And that's what wins people over. But Unity, what are Unity doing to help this? So if you don't know already, because I go to a lot of non-gaming events now, and people surprisingly say, what is Unity? Unity is a game engine. It's real-time rendered, so everything can happen on the fly. Real-time dynamic lighting, rendering, audio, navigation. So you don't actually bake anything into the scene. So anything can be dynamic. And traditionally, we've been used for games. So we've been around nearly for 10 years now, and we're the most used game engine in the world. And this is just a sample of games that have been made with Unity. Some popular ones up there, like Ori and the Blind Forest, and yeah, many others. But yeah, so everybody knows us as in the games industry and knows what we can do. And like I said, it's made up of lots of different components. So here, for example, are just some of the middleware that we use for Enlighten, real-time rendering. We use Fmod for audio. We've got terrain tools, lighting, special effects like particle effects. And anybody at all can use this for completely free. They can just download Unity, and deploy to all different platforms. But the reason why it became so big and used all over the world is because of just the editor. So it's a really nice asset workflow, and you can do that really nice scene building, very, very quick iteration, and you can just use JavaScript or C#. And if you was developing your own engine, generally people would be doing it in C++, which obviously takes a long time, a lot of technical knowledge needed. And then we're also bringing a lot of services into Unity as well as networking, ads, analytics, all built into the engine. So it's all one ecosystem where you can develop your games, applications, VR. And one of the huge things is its cross-platform capability. Currently, we support 26 different platforms. The main ones being like Mac, PC, Linux, iOS, Android, all of the consoles, Xbox, PlayStation, the new Switch, and obviously in the last few years, all of the VR platforms. So yeah, so we've been working together with a lot of the different hardware and software vendors over the last few years to be able to give this tool to developers to be able to make applications for all of the different HMDs. And it all started with this guy, who's unfortunately, the other day, not part of Oculus anymore for more political views, but it's still pretty amazing what he's done for the industry overall. So this is Palmer Luckey, who invented the Oculus HMD. So over maybe like 3 or 4 years ago now, he came to David Helgeson, our founder and CEO at the time, and showed him this crazy huge headset. And David came back in 10 and he said, hey, we need to invest in this guy. We need to help him with his Kickstarter project. And everyone was like, who's this like crazy hippie dude with his headset that's not gonna take on? And it did. So yeah, David Helgeson was featured in the Oculus Kickstarter, which did immensely well. And then we built the Oculus SDK integration into Unity 4, which at the time is now Unity 5, as of 2 years ago. But so yeah, which meant that developers could use Unity to develop for Oculus and create their first prototypes in the DK1. And we gave Unity Pro to all Oculus developers. So as soon as you download the Oculus SDK and have the headset, you got Unity Pro, which was $1,500 at the time, for completely free. And then we worked with Google for Google Cardboard for the SDK integration into Unity 4. So straight away, as soon as people already know Unity, they're making games already, they can then target those HMD devices. And then after that, we've been working with HTC and Valve with the Vive, as well as other like platform vendors with Samsung, and carried on with Google. And in 2016, the time what I genuinely think was the year of VR, we hosted the Vision Summit, which again is happening next month in May. It's a cross-industry VR conference. And we being Unity, like obviously we're prone to be biased. We think Unity is the best for VR, but we invited all of our partners, all of our competitors to come together and help VR and AR in the long run, not just for our benefit, but for everybody. We introduced native HMD integration with Oculus, PSVR, Vive, and Gear VR. So that means that you no longer need the SDKs to be imported into Unity. You can just go into the settings, you click one button that says virtual reality supported, and then automatically can tell what target platform you're targeting at the time. So then it pulls all of those APIs and uses the internal SDK rather than importing anyone else's, which is pretty amazing. And our labs team in Paris and San Francisco have been working on new rendering pipeline improvements to make games run even quicker. So there's quite a big overhead when developing for VR because you have to render the camera twice. Left eye, right eye, obviously. Not everyone's a Cyclops. So that has a huge overhead on rendering and performance. So these techniques have helped that. And then we also introduced an SDK integration with HoloLens. So David, who was speaking earlier on, said that Accenture do most of their stuff in Unity, and they'll be able to do that with our SDK integration with HoloLens. And then Daydream support as well. So yeah, as of last year, when HoloLens launched, we was the only middleware that you could develop for HoloLens. You could do it natively, DirectX 12, but you have to be a bit crazy to try that. So yeah, we're super happy to partner with Microsoft and be kind of like the official vendor for HoloLens development, which is great for game developers, but it's been quite a rough ride for other people who've come from different industries and never used a game engine and like, well, what the hell is going on here? Like, it's a bit strange sometimes, but it's worked well. And in other AR applications, we've partnered with Vuforia, PTC, and again, we're one of the best tools to use for developing for Vuforia. So this is an awesome virtual T-shirt where people can look and then see kind of the internal organs through the phone. And the T-shirt is the marker itself. But as a result of everything that we've been doing over the past 3 or 4 years, here's like just some stats of games that are on these platforms. These don't include 360 videos, which are very popular for Gear VR, but 90% of games on Gear VR are made with Unity, and 53% of games that are on the Oculus platform are developed with Unity, which is pretty amazing. But we've put that much effort in, we've partnered that much with those companies. It's great results to see. But the future, so we've done that, been doing that for 3 or 4 years now. What are we looking towards, and how can we help developers in the long run? So we're developing a new input system, so it has dedicated VR input. And if anyone's a VR developer in here, they'll be like saying yes inside. Because previously you have to import every single separate SDK to get their input. So with the Oculus Touch controllers or the Vive controllers or the input on the side of the Gear VR, they're all dedicated SDKs. They're now getting input into Unity natively. Continued research on rendering techniques for like telemetry, and we're also partnering with Otoy, the Octane renderer, which is like a baked rendering solution using some pretty amazing stuff for like film and animations, so you can view ray tracing, pretty nice. More cross-platform improvements. As one hardware vendor gets better, we kind of try to bring everyone else up to that standard. And then better tools for developers. So Editor VR, where you can actually be in the Unity editor in VR and move things around in the scene, change different components and change things in the inspector, so you don't have to keep taking the headset off and putting it back on again for testing. You just develop everything in the headset. A lot of artist and storytelling tools as well. So we're very pushing heavily into the artist developer area now, and film and animation, TV. They're also coming closer to us as well. So like the Jungle Book film, for example, they use Unity for all of their pre-production. So they could get all of their camera angles, they can get all of their animations, and just plan out kind of storyboard in the Unity editor rather than just drawing or sketching. And also consumer tools. So ways that consumers and game players and people who want to experience those applications can also experience and change things and adapt and mod via VR. So here's just a really quick video of how the editor VR works. This is Timony, our principal designer on the labs team who are working on editor VR. And this is just a scene from a game. I can't remember what it's called now. But basically, she is bringing in all different components and objects through the Unity editor and placing them into the scene. And she can get a feel of how the scene works, the right size and scaling, where they need to be in the world. And then she can press play and then play the game as it would be in VR as well. She can access every variable and component that would be normally just on the screen in the editor and change them with the headset and the tracking controllers. And then she can also put a virtual camera in there and record the footage with her hand and play it back and save it to disk. So a lot of developers are excited about this because for me, I'm making a lot of VR stuff. You have to do something in the editor, have the headset off, press play, put it on, off, on. It takes a long time, and you don't get a real good feel of what it would be like in the game. And then looking into more consumer projects now. This is Carte Blanche, and this is kind of like a modding system and world builder for consumers. So this would be integrated into a game, and they'd be able to build their own world and then share it with their friends. I spilled some down me as well. So these consumers can kind of be the developers of their own world, and then they can drop themselves into that world and experience it, and as well as getting the top-down view. But then we're also looking at different applications and working with different companies to help creators. So people can now create things in this application called Tiltbrush, 3D art, and then bring it back in to the editor. So Tiltbrush was made by a side company of Google, and this allows people to paint and create artwork fully in 3D. And then they also built a thing called Tiltbrush Toolkit, which allows you to extract all of the artwork and bring it back into Unity, the game engine. So you could literally make a VR game from another VR application. And it's absolutely amazing. And then we're also working with mixed reality and different game developers and vendors of how to create this form of medium of people experiencing the VR world, but also everybody else viewing, and it being a very social experience because you can see what they're seeing, but on a different camera angle. And when you think about this in terms of how kind of esports is coming along, you could have kind of like a battle arena where everybody's playing in VR, and you can have your director moving around the camera and streaming that to Twitch or to YouTube. And it's a completely different aspect of how VR could be implemented into esports. I think as well, a lot of people say that VR is a very standalone and isolated thing to do, but 99% of the time I'm playing VR games is with other people in the room, so they can see what I'm doing. We can have a good laugh. All my friends come around, or we go to the office and we all watch each other play on these games. So when you can then experience it via green screen, what everyone else is seeing in the world, that's really nice. But why VR? Why VR or AR or XR or MR? Why should you go for that? Why should you try it in your applications? Why should you try it in your non-games? And I think the answer is just pure immersion. Like, there's a group of people here, there's lots of people around, but they're in that world. As soon as they put on the HMD, whichever it might be, cardboard down to the Vive, they're transported and they're immersed into another area. And we're not just using it as like watching a screen and it's a very passive experience, but we're also taking part. So you could be in the middle of nowhere, or you could be in a full room of lots of people. But as soon as you're there, you've got your whole attention into that space. So yeah, it's amazing for games. It feels people are there and experiencing what the game characters are experiencing. But in so many formats, it's really great. And we consume so much passively. Like I say, like when we sit down on a sofa and watch Netflix, or when we're playing a game, we'll say if we're playing FIFA at home, we've still got other things in the background. But when you're in VR, And as a creator, it's pretty amazing that you have that person's full attention. Like even people here, like some people might have maybe 60, 70% attention on me. Some of my people might be thinking what they're going to have for tea later on, or have some beer, thinking they're going to have some beers later, or on their phone. You're never going to have somebody's 100% attention like you would do when you have a VR experience. So this example here is just an animation, but the hedgehog, Henry, he looks directly into your eyes. And you feel as though you're no longer watching him get on with his day. You feel like you're there and you're the protagonist in the story. And Henry pops a balloon because he's a hedgehog and he's got spikes everywhere. And he looks genuinely sad. And you feel empathy for Henry because he's this sad hedgehog who just popped a balloon on his birthday. And giving somebody that like immersive experience where they feel as though they're connecting with a cartoon hedgehog in this like hollowed out tree is pretty amazing. But looking at more business applications, for example, we can have virtual exploration. So here's like an Audi dealership, some guys called Zero Light in the UK. There was originally a game studio. Now they just do high-end visualization for cars. This consumer here can move around what will be their new vehicle eventually. They can change the color, the rims, the spoiler heights, whatever you would want to change on like a car configurator. And the dude with the iPad is just changing things as he sees fit, and you can walk around and experience that. We can use it for marketing to put people in certain situations. So like when the Game of Thrones episode where they ascended the wall, and he was like, wow, that must be amazing to see what it's like up there. This, at an exhibition space, the cages are actually rattling when they're in there, and they can feel, because they see it in the HMD, them going up, and they can feel a rattling. A lot of people started getting vertigo and getting really dizzy, but that's how they would experience it because that's what they wanted to do. It's amazing for education as well. So this, In Mind, is a game where players go through the brain and see different cells and have to fight off bad ones and save good ones. I'm not a brain surgeon, so I don't know the official terms. But it's that kind of gamification and learning at the same time. Like David was showing earlier on, when people had to build Lego, they followed either a 2D manual or they followed it in 3D and AR. People can do it much quicker because they've experienced it and they've done things and they've interacted and they learn a lot better. A company where I'm from in Brighton made this McDonald's simulator where you harvest potatoes. And they have a steering wheel, they've got the HMDs, and you race against each other to harvest as many potatoes as possible. But again, it's that form of education, and people are learning the process of what the McDonald's farmers go through to bring you your super salty fries. But again, it's that kind of, we're doing, we're seeing, we're learning a lot better because we're not just experiencing it passively on a TV. But then you can transport people to amazing and scary worlds. So this is just a 360 video of a story of a young girl growing up in Syria. And it's basically what her day-to-day activities are like. Going to school in a shack, like going through the camp, the refugee camp where she is. And even though it's a 360 video, it's not as much interactive. You still feel a lot of empathy and you can associate yourself more than just seeing a news article on the BBC or whatever, because you've seen what it's like and experienced it and heard the sound and what happens when the planes are flying ahead, and it's quite scary. And then we've got things like short animated series where this is a really great example because things happen only when the player is looking at them. So everything behind will not happen, or maybe you'll hear an audio sound that brings the player's attention and they have to look around and then the animation will play. So the full series is based on player interaction where they're looking. And here's like another story about Turkish refugees on a boat. And this one's more 3D, so it's not just 360 video, but every object is animated and 3D. So again, you feel as though you're in this boat, and it's crazy how VR can teleport you to those worlds and start to feel scared or anxious, and give you that feeling of what they must be feeling as well. I hate horror, so I've not actually been through this, but this is Ouija 2, a VR experience for the film. But people like VR, really love it, so I thought I'd use it as an example. But again, it's just another form of giving people that sense of, hey, this is the VR experience, this is as scary as the movie, go watch the movie because you enjoyed the VR experience. Just extra marketing. And like I said about creators before, so every one of these images here was created in Tiltbrush as a 3D application, and you can literally walk around. So if this was just the tracked area, I could walk around each one of these pieces and moving in and out, which is pretty amazing for creators to be able to share that with people. And you can actually save them on disk and share them with the rest of the world, so that they can import that artwork into their 3D space as well. And then we can even go to space and explore the universe. So this is an astronaut on the ISS using HoloLens. And this is called Project Sidekick. And this is a Unity-based application for the astronauts to be able to communicate with ground control. So if there's a procedure that needs doing on the ISS, instead of getting out the big handbook and memorizing everything, I can't remember the astronaut's name now, but he basically has everything stored on the headset, and it tells him everything to do. So he doesn't have to remember every single thing, he doesn't have to remember every single procedure, and it enhances his daily duties. And it can even enhance play in kids. So this is done by Disney Research. So it's a coloring book app. So the kid colors in the elephant on the page. The app scans the marker and then fills in where the kid's also colored as well. And then he starts dancing around and moving, and you can capture that and share it with your friends, how you've colored in different colors. And then it can also enhance just general exploration. So when Pokemon Go came out, another Unity application, how many people just left their offices and work early to go exploring to try to catch a Pikachu or a Charmander, right? Brighton was crazy at the time. You couldn't go anywhere without people just walking into each other or falling over or spilling everything because they're just looking at their phone trying to find a Bulbasaur. But this is how people and this is how consumers are getting introduced to AR and put it into more social aspects. So like Pokemon Go, like was mentioned, Instagram, Snapchat earlier on. Like how many teenagers are using Snapchat every single day, not realizing that is actually AR, and they're putting dog ears on. Like all of the technology that we have in the world, and people use it to put dog ears on themselves, right? But eventually, people won't even consider it as VR, AR, or MR, or XR. They'll just see it as part of their daily life. It's like when touchscreen phones came along. Like, oh, you've got touchscreen. But nobody says touchscreen anymore, do they? Because it's just a thing that's just incorporated into everything. My little boy went up to the TV. He's 6. Went up to the TV and went to swipe it when he was a bit younger and said, oh, why is this not working? And I was like, oh, because the TV's not touchscreen. And he said, why? And I was like, it's just not. So when he's in 10, 15 years, he won't consider VR a word. It'll just be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to consume a game, or I'm going to consume TV, or I'm going to consume a movie. And he won't consider it, oh, I'm going to go into VR and do it. It'll just be an everyday thing. And that's what my job is to do, is to go see developers and help them shape the future, and using Unity to do that. Because it's a brand new medium and nobody really knows what works just yet. We've had a lot of prototypes, and I go to a lot of game jams, and so many game developers are testing new things, and things work right now, such as People generally do teleportation for locomotion, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be the set way forever. It might be new ways. So I'm sure people have seen this before, but it's a really great example. We're creating things for now and what work for now, but another 5 years, a new generation of kids are going to be using VR in completely different ways. So it's really up to us to keep testing things and prototyping and seeing what we can do. And UI is just one example of this. So if we consider this UI here, and this is like a fairly common type of MMO UI, and we wouldn't expect it to be different. But if we laid this over as like a HMD, and no matter how cool Tony Stark looks here, like that would be super confusing to be able to do that with HMD on in VR. So we need to look at ways that we can redesign things such as UI in the VR and AR world, such as maybe embedding them into our trackers. So you've got a tracker in your hand, and you move your arm, you can see it's all embedded into the world. Or even kind of like Minority Report style, where, say, if we've got the HoloLens on, everything is around us, we can turn all of the UI on and off. We just flick our hand, and it's all here. It's not in our peripherals all the time. Because when we've got the headsets on, we only focus on this very small area. We're not going to be looking up in every single peripheral or side. So it's really, really important for developers to try as much as possible and get feedback and try different things, not just stick with what works right now. Because content is king, and that's why I travel so much and meet so many developers and talk at a lot of non-game events to try get them to get the game developers to work on their projects with them, because there's some of the most innovative ways to progress. Because we never really know what pill the consumer is going to take in the end. It's up to us just to preach and talk about VR and get them interested. But yeah, that's all I have. Thank you very much. I know Finnish people don't do Q&A because they're too scared or too shy to ask, but feel free to catch me afterwards or tweet me or yeah. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions, thanks very much for having me. David, do you have a question?
Yeah, a couple. VR, which HMDs does that support or will it support?
Right now, it's an experimental. You can just download it for free, and it's Oculus and Vive.
Excellent. And for doing panoramic videos, a lot of people are, either getting a plug-in or building their own. I thought I heard at Unite that you guys were planning on building something into Unity itself for doing panoramic, authoring.
Yeah, that's correct. So 5.6 was released last Friday, and that includes a brand new video player component. That also works. It's 4K right now. We're looking to put it up to 8 eventually, but you can do full 360 video with that as well.
Does it support stereo?
With probably the Google Audio SDK.
I mean the stereoscopic over/under.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk more about some ideas I got on audio authoring.
Sweet.
Thanks.
That Unity VR, how sore are your shoulders after using that for a while? It looked pretty sort of like it will be a completely different experience for a designer anyway, not clicking the mouse, but like that was full movement all the time.
Yeah, sure. That's one of the things that we do need to consider in VR in general is fatigue and psychological and physical comfort. I'd say like I wouldn't spend all day using the editor VR. I'd use it for more placement of my objects and do all my coding and scripting and everything else just sat at my desk. But for actually getting the feel for designers and the presence of what you're trying to achieve, it's really great.
Okay, thank you, Josh. I think it was very eye-opening. I remember 3 years ago we had one Unity project in school, and it has been a long way since then. Like everything's and you can do the HTML5 games and. So,
yeah, it's super interesting. Like, for me, because my world kind of is VR, and all of my Twitter followers into VR, and everybody I know loves VR. When you leave that and go to somewhere else, and then people are not even aware of it. So that's why I love to come to more stuff like this to talk to people about VR. Is everyone who has not experienced VR in this room? Okay, so like 3 or 4 people. Okay, so David has his HoloLens with him, so that's the first thing to try. That's pretty amazing. That's like very top end, but any opportunity you get, please do try it. Especially room scale VR with tracked controllers, the immersion that it brings, even being able to chuck it in the air and catch it again. Like, that's how accurate they are. You can literally juggle them, and that's how accurate it is. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and you can buy HDI Vive across the channel from Verkkokauppa. I think it's 900 euros at the moment. But I have tried Tilt Brush, and it's really amazing that you can kind of sculpture the air, or you can draw with fire. It's a really outstanding experience.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Especially, like, my next game will be the content authored in Tiltbrush and then brought into Unity as well. So, kind of inception of VR, making a VR game from VR content. Cool.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.